Good afternoon. I feel actually privileged and overwhelmed with such auspicious occasion of talking about EdTech. So you might hear my heart also bleeding in between a bit. So please, pardon those things, coming out as the real part. But I'll talk about six specific elements. So that is six slides and should take around 10 to 12 minutes. I'll give a general view on the face of EdTech and in what forms and factors is EdTech prevalent in the Indian ecosystem today, and global ecosystem is no different. EdTech also gets segmented on the processes which EdTech companies are approaching, and I'll give you some 7 or 10 examples from Pune. I will also give a brief idea on why 7, 8 ecosystems in the world have been successful exclusively in EdTech. And then how do industries collaborate with the startups, and where is it that we have an EdTech challenge? And what does EdTech need? So organizations like Extra Edge and WordsMaya, who've been around for a long time, would actually know that 7, 8 years ago, when people wanted to attempt something in EdTech, others wanted them to get their vitals checked. That is the person really, in his senses to approach the EdTech ecosystem. But the fact of the matter is that there is enough passion for people to do it. They just probably need a little bit more hand holding, so to say. So EdTech approaches 4 different kind of stakeholders. We call it the RELI stakeholders. There is the regulator, there is the educator, that is the teacher, the learner, that is the student, and the institution where all this happens. And it makes it highly complicated because sometimes you would be attempting to do a real good work in EdTech, which may not be regulatorily compliant. Or you have a wish list of doing something for EdTech where you would not have taken enough inputs from, say, teachers. You might have even just taken inputs from learners. So developing an ecosystem which is able to accentuate the benefit across the whole value chain is not very easy. And that is why I prefer to tell people that EdTech is unique and separate, and there are other sectors which are there. So the first part is that in the last 1 year itself, $1.5 billion worth of funding has happened in the Indian EdTech companies. The question that we need to ask ourselves is how much of it did Pune attract? So if you look at companies like Pariksha, companies like Imagine XP, and Extra Edge, I know they have got funded, but what percentage of the national investment that happened in India in EdTech came to Pune, which is the education capital of country, is something which we should think about. And these are all published reports by Inc42, Traction, Your Story, so the numbers can be checked. The second is as per the Traction report of 2021, and Traction is India's most formidable market research report organization for startups. There are 6,000 plus registered EdTech companies in India, of which 300 plus are in Pune. So if 5% or 6% of the whole Indian ecosystem is in Pune, that means in every nook and cranny of this city, there is an EdTech company which needs to be discovered and supported. The next element is that I've given a link as well. So Inc42 report of 2020 says that the EdTech / education opportunity in India will be growing almost 4x from 2020 to 2025. So we are actually looking at a market of $10 billion, which is probably more than many companies put together in certain form and structure. So it is humongous, it is huge, it deserves the passion and the backup that we can give them. And Bark and Nielsen released a study last December where they said that in the first 3 months of the lockdown, education apps traffic increased by 30%. Actually, in any ecosystem, if an app traffic increases by 30%, apps collapse, whether it is food tech, whether it is fintech, whether it is health, healthcare. But this is the kind of explosion that happened. So that means it's a necessary and essential service. And it is not just e-learning and test prep. So if you go to non-practitioners of education, if you ask them what is EdTech, they leave it at e-learning and test prep, but that is just probably the tip of the iceberg on one EdTech. And this presentation is available for sharing if any of this data makes sense. So let's look at some verticals. Now, from a verticals perspective, we have schools where EdTech can play a role, with Dr. Vidya also spoke about, and then you have higher education where there is a formal process of learning and development. However, there is a lot of impetus that is happening, and in that augmented reality, virtual reality, experienced reality, and mixed reality are playing a fundamental role today. And I'll talk about a few companies there. which are ensuring that if a person is out of an institution and still trying to find out where the core domain lies, they are able to take the candidate over there. And then corporate learning globally is edtech. In India, there is a definition which keeps it in some space which I'm not aware of, but the amount of budgets that are available in corporate learning and development are humongous. And you develop solutions for them, and corporate also needs equal amount of assessment of outcomes as much as we need in, say, K-12 or higher education. And there are beautiful organizations working, and there's a company in Bangalore called We Create Problems, WECP, which only creates questionnaires for corporates. So that is another ecosystem. And then making people identify the right careers, the right jobs. So we have landed into the era of gig economy. So there are full-timers, there are part-timers, there are freelancers, there are gig workers. And there are platforms which are coming up, which are able to connect the right organizations to the kind of hiring they want to do, whether they want to do gig, full-time, part-time. Earlier, we used to call them blue-collared and white-collared. The whole terminology has changed. And then there is campus management, and campus is not just a house. I mean, I have the privilege to be seeing so many wonderful campuses in Pune. I've been here for around 12 years now. It's not a small job to start from, getting an entry into a campus to getting the learning and development in place, and then admissions and education commerce, making people get the benefits of what institution wants to have at their houses, how the admission process should work out. So these verticals all have edtech companies. And when you look at technologies, there is augmented reality, which is more for people who have mobile phones and they can use it effectively. Institutional gamification and gamification in K-12. And then you have virtual reality and artificial intelligence playing a very, very critical role. The web, the app, the audio. So there are certain places where probably the bandwidth to put video is very less, but then there are audio modules which go on feature phones so that people are at least able to listen to them rather than putting content on live learning or recorded learning. So audio still works over there. And then you have robotics. There is a company in Bombay called MIKO, which has created a robotic for edtech, which is more like Alexa for education. So the robot keeps on walking with the child, and you keep on asking questions to the robot, and with artificial intelligence, it keeps on picking answers. It's a highly funded company from India. It's an IITian ecosystem. And then you have machine learning. And education, in my understanding, has 4 processes. So one process is that you admit students for education, whether it is in traditional education or the short courses. Then you offer the academic process. You teach the student. And then you assess the ability of the student to have learned and retained the programs. And last is accentuation. Accentuation is the means to the end. How does the person showcase what he or she has learned? Is it through getting a job, or becoming an entrepreneur, or becoming a freelancer? And in Pune, there are companies in all these 4 domains which are working. So you would know about Extra Edge anyway. It's a very, very illustrated and celebrated organization, streamlining the admission process for organizations. Then you have a company called ClassBoat, which has been incubated at EduGuild, which was the MIT's EdTech incubator. And these founders have around 20-25 years of experience, and they developed this company. And then there is EU Gateway, which is a company in Pune helping students go overseas for education. So admissions overseas is something which they look at. So, and these are representative names. So there must be 150, 200 more. Then Academic Proctor, I think they're also presenting today. So they are able to automate classrooms of people, coaching institutes where they do not have a structured standard process of delivering academics. And then Imagine XP, a company which has recently got funded, who are becoming partners to universities for their academic programs. From an assessment perspective, there's a unique case of PEP study the company presents today. These are IITians and XLRI professionals. The story there is that the XLRI guy, Indivar, hired the other 2 in his earlier company, and they became co-founders and launched an edtech organization. Now they came and they left Ahmedabad and came to Pune 2 months ago to make difference to what can happen in education in there. A wonderful AI-led assessment organization. And then Jungru Learning moved from Pune to Goa. So they were incubated in Pune. They were given all services, facilities, structures, mentoring in Pune, but still they wanted to find favors with the government on some funds and some grants which they could not find in Maharashtra. So in Pune, so they moved to Goa. And in accentuation, to make people job ready, to make people career ready, Worlds Maya has brought a lot of glory to Pune. You already know that. I am a part of Teens Club, so we work on developing innovation centers in universities and schools. Simulanis got incubated in Pune. It is a 7 crore company now in 4 years, but based out of Delhi now, moved out from Pune, rewarded by Narendra Modi ji, rewarded by other people. They are India's largest experience reality, virtual reality company for learning and development. They started as a 3 people team in Pune, and there are a 55 people team company right now, doing good work in education, simulation labs, and all that stuff. Then Dr. Ganesh Natarajan has 5F World, which everybody knows, nothing to talk about it. Then Pariksha actually helps people in test prep to take their journeys forward to banking exams and all that stuff. Again, a company based out of Pune. But the unique company, which is not in Pune, got incubated in Pune but launched in US, is Skillsonic. So Skillsonic gets students and professionals jobs in the gig economy, and they are now wanting a strong partner to come back to Pune and launch in India. But they were incubated in Pune. So the only input I wanted to give here is that there's a lot of success, but this success is coming at a cost of time, which can be reduced by what we can do as a chamber and as the executive committee here in MCCIA. So 1 minute on what happened to the EdTech ecosystem, and this is EdTech exclusive ecosystem. So this is not, so ASU GSV, an ecosystem of Arizona State University, has a formidable fund as well as an accelerator and an incubator who only does EdTech. Then you have New York University's Steinhardt EdTech Accelerator program. It is called StartEd, which is the East Coast's most popular EdTech ecosystem in US. Then you have XEDU in Helsinki. It is a Finnish ecosystem backed by University of Helsinki inside Helsinki. So they don't do anything else. They only do EdTech, all of these guys. Then you have EduGrowth in Australia. They are partners with Deakin and Monash. They will not do anything else other than EdTech. And then you have Emerge Education, which came out of Oxford and now has partnerships with both Cambridge and Oxford University as well as University Press. And they have launched a fund now. And then Lithan is a part of Lifelong Learning Institute in Singapore. They've come to Bombay now. The uniqueness is all of them are backed by universities. All of them only do EdTech. The question we probably need to ask ourselves is how many of them are in India, which are only doing EdTech. So globally, there are 50 plus independent core EdTech incubators and accelerators. And in the last 8 years, we have developed a very strong relationship with all of them. But the question is, we need to have one in India, which only does EdTech. So now look at the sectors that support EdTech. So in health and pharma in the last 1 year, 19 to 20 biotech startups have been supported or acquired by pharma companies, and 200 plus ventures have been supported. The average deal size was around $300 million. In banking and financial services, SDFC, Yes Bank, ICICI, RBL all have announced programs to help BFSI, fintech, cybersecurity startups. Then you come to e-commerce. Amazon has openly announced of already having made 7 plus e-commerce startups investments in India. Flipkart has launched a fund, and Xiaomi has a fund now for companies in retail and e-commerce. But in EdTech, if you see, educational institutions or corporates, whether it is Tata ClassEdge, Pearson, Cambridge, Aditya Birla, Mahindras, or the top 10 educational institutions in India, nobody has a specific ecosystem or a fund for EdTech. So all other sectors, we just need to emulate that. And we had EduGuild in Pune, and Mirai Next is an EdTech innovation center launching at a women engineering college in Hyderabad. So that is one thing which is coming up. And there are a lot of EdTech companies at a regional level who are merging to sustain themselves because they're not able to reach the decision makers probably. But here is my learning. Advisors, mentors, and EdTech advisors, mentors are very different. Understanding a teacher's user persona, a regulator's requirement, a learner's user persona is not a pure product development. So there has to be a distinction when companies go out to meet mentors or go to incubators and accelerators to see whether the person understands education or not. It's lives at stake. It is as important as healthcare. So, and if you look at the VCs, Kaizen Private Equity is the only EdTech exclusive VC in India. But if you look at other parts of the world, as I mentioned about Emerge Education is a VC, ASU GSV is a VC. The more educational institutions can pool funds together, there can be EdTech specific VCs in India, and they don't get lost in the crowd. And in this is my dream wish list, right? That it is recognized as a specific and a special sector because there is a regulatory walled garden a lot of external companies just cannot come and partner with the Indian ecosystem in education, and the gestation periods are long. So if you are having a patience of 7 to 8 years, is the time edtech starts to show its colors and profits. They are not run of the mill. And that is why I respect all these edtech founders, because of the patience that they've had. I don't know how much bootstrapped and families' money they've put at stake. And then we need to question mentors, that why do you say you can mentor edtech companies as well? And you will see that you'll find a challenge on the spectrum reducing on the people who can actually work on edtech ecosystems. And then faculty is brilliant in colleges, and they actually have the our intent to do deep solution viability, but many edtech companies don't get the opportunity to collaborate with them. I also know a lot of colleges whose patents can directly be mapped into edtech companies, but then the lack of visibility is there. So if there is a way patents can be discovered, being developed in colleges, and can be given royalty for use, it's like the Qualcomm model where I was working earlier, that you develop, make it fabulous, and take royalties. And you won't have to give minimum viable product and product market fit launch support, which can only happen on campus. So, when companies knock the doors of educational institutions before getting commercialization, they want to be sure whether they have done the right thing or not. And the first office application is a trial project. So I don't know any edtech company on day one, but they want to be sure that they can get a FOA inside a college or a school or a corporate. And last is leverage. Till the time an edtech company can reach a decision maker, I think half of them already lose patience. And this is something which is neither in my control or in the decision makers' control in the edtech ecosystem. Everybody is equally busy. But how do you deploy that hours to take it forward? And everything that is on this sheet, there is no better Pune to make it happen. And that is a wish list. And this is my profile. Why I'm putting it out is because I feel very dwarfed in terms of the illustrious panel which is there. I've been in education for around 7-8 years, but people have devoted their 2-3 decades of experience over there. But whatever I've learned in edtech got out in a book called Kites in a Hurricane, and it still remains my passion. And while I see Byju's and Unacademy, as Bharat mentioned, during IPL, sponsorships and all, this city deserves to be the edtech capital of India. So why, to celebrate what's happening in, say, a Bangalore or a Hyderabad or a Delhi, whatever it takes to make this as an edtech capital of India, I think it is just there. And with that, I'll give a stop to my talk. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope it was, relevant and meaningful to some sense. Thank you.